I want to talk to you about what I'm calling the 6 levels of entrepreneurship. The 6 levels of entrepreneurship. Then we can pick whatever we are doing from that point. There are 6 levels of entrepreneurship. There are 6 of them. A person that is in a job and they are getting a salary, that person is an entrepreneur. I'll explain why I'm saying that. Yeah. If you are in a job and you're getting a salary, you are an entrepreneur. You know what makes you different from the other entrepreneur? Number 1 is the product or the service you are offering. The number 2 is the customer you have chosen to serve. A person on a job is serving one customer, the employer. And somehow, by design, they have agreed with the employer that I'll be the only customer. You can't sell what you have to anybody else. And based on that, they even agree on how much money they'll make from that business. So if you are in employment, please understand you are an entrepreneur. The only difference, what you are offering and the kind of customers. So, the 6 levels of entrepreneurship. The first one is what I am calling the personal level of entrepreneurship. Because at the end of this, I want you to locate where you belong, and then we'll discuss how you need to move from that level to another level. So there are 6 levels of entrepreneurship. Number 1 is the personal level. Now, at this personal level, you are only able to keep yourself. For example, if you walk out, probably you find guys, selling talk time and doing mobile money and whatever. If you talk to most of them, you find that probably they are only able to make little money to pay rent and maybe survive through the month. And then the month finishes and that's it. If they try to do anything beyond that, they will enter into debt. So that is the first level of entrepreneurship. It's called the personal level. At that level, you have only built, number 1, your knowledge to keep yourself. Number 2, your skills, just to keep yourself. Number 3, the systems, just to keep yourself, if at all there are any systems. Then number 4, the people that surround you, just to keep yourself. So that's the first level. And when you look at our nation, Zambia, majority are in that category. They are only able to keep themselves, and it ends there. So actually, that's why we are even calling this program Zambia Entrepreneurship and Leadership Development Program. Our goal is to raise Zambians from these lower levels. We want to lift them from the lowest level to the next level to the next level until we get to a point where, we can have global entrepreneurs in this country. So that's number 1 level. And why are we doing that? I'll divert a little bit. It is because when you look at our nation, you see when allow me to be spiritual for 5 minutes, then I'll go back to entrepreneurship. When God is building a nation, there are 3 stages. Any nation which God has a hand in, there are 3 stages. The first stage is the Exodus stage. Okay, question. If you read the Bible, why do you think God sent Israel into Egypt? Because he knew they were going to be oppressed. So, why do you think the colonizers came to Africa? Okay, question. Didn't God know they were going to oppress our fathers? Couldn't he have stopped it? I'm just challenging your thinking. He could have stopped it. But when God is building a nation, he allows them to go through oppression. Then comes the Exodus. Moses rises. Kenneth Kaunda rises. Gee, I love these things. He takes the children of Israel out of Egypt. Kenneth Kaunda gets independence for Zambia. Then after that, what follows is a wilderness moment. In the wilderness, there is survival. So when you look at Zambia, I'm giving you this from an understanding perspective. It's not prophecy. There are just some certain things that God has given me grace to understand. So when you look at Zambia, it's coming from Exodus, oppression Exodus. Then it enters the wilderness. In the wilderness, you don't prosper. You only survive. This is why much of what we have been doing as Zambians is survival. I'm telling you, that's why we are not seeing great people rising. Much of it is survival. It has been a wilderness moment. Because in the wilderness, you are given manna. You don't own any company. You don't need it. Their shoes were not finishing. Their clothes were not wearing out. All they needed was food in the morning, food lunch, food in the night. That was it. So our nation has been in a wilderness moment. Now, the time has come when, because after wilderness, you have to step into the promised land. Now you can own something. And that's the stage where we have reached as a nation. Have you not wondered why, no matter how many times we are voting, nothing is changing? Just think about it. So even 2026, if we Zambians are not ready to go out and possess what is in Canaan, we will still want to vote in 2020, whatever. So the time for survival has passed. It's now time for inheritance. So now what happens when it's time for inheritance? I said 5 minutes. I'll stick to 5 minutes. Then I'll go back to entrepreneurship. What happens, when it's time for inheritance? The Bible, if you read, says that God told Joshua, get a flint knife, a flint knife, like cut a knife from a stone, and then go and circumcise these ones who were born in the wilderness. Our generation is a wilderness generation. We were born in a survival season. So now God says, go and circumcise them. When you look at circumcision in the Bible, it's not really the physical circumcision. It talks about circumcision of the heart. And when you talk about the heart, you're talking about the mind. So what am I saying? In this season, that's why, we decided to invite him. Because I believe these are the men with a flint knife to circumcise the minds of the Zambian. That's why if you look carefully, you see that there are a lot of writers rising in this nation. A lot of them. Tatula won't forget, because they are just beginning. But these are the men that are going to circumcise the minds of the Zambians so that Zambians can now enter the promised land and begin possessing what they need to possess. That's why we'll complain about investors. Nothing will change. What is needed is men with a flint knife to circumcise the mind. Because when you talk about circumcision, you're talking about separation and you're talking about identity. Let me leave those things. It's a story for another day. But I hope you have gotten what I was trying to, explain. So we are at a level where the nation is in a transition. So our mandate is national. That's why today we are in Mufulira, tomorrow you'll see us in Lusaka, the other day you'll see us in Choma. Our mandate is national. We are going to every place in Zambia. We are going to train leaders and we are going to train entrepreneurs. Why? Because we understand the season. It's a mandate that God has given us. He has put it on our hearts. So, back to the levels of entrepreneurship. So I said there is level number 1, personal. You can only keep yourself. And the majority of the Zambians are at that level. Then level number 2 is what we call family level. Now, at family level, you are only able to look after yourself and your family. And that's it. Majority of the working class, the ones that we call the working class or the middle class, are at the family level. They can rent a house, buy a car, put fuel for the month, pay for school, kids at school. Once they do those things, the money is gone. If they try to do anything beyond that, they go get a loan from the bank. It's a level. You cannot operate beyond a level you have been prepared for. It doesn't work like that. So that's the second level. Then the third level is what we are calling community level. At community level, the best example I can give is the small contractors we have, especially here in Mufulira because of Mopani. There are a lot of small contractors. Because at community level, now you are not only able to sustain yourself and your family, but now you are also able to sustain other families in the communities. How? By creating a job that will employ another person. And automatically, the higher you rise, the greater the benefit comes to you. So that's the third stage. I'll rush through it. I don't want us to stay here for too long. So community level. So like I've said, many of the contractors we know today, they are at community level. They can survive as a family. They can employ 20, 30. What? They can employ 20, 30 people and pay them small salaries. They also go and look after their families, and that's it. It ends there.
What two?
So you can just ignore that. I think our mixer picks frequencies from around. So that's the third level. Then the fourth level from the community stage now is what we are calling national stage. Now at national stage, this is where now you have built something which can survive here in Mufulira, it can survive in Kitwe, it can survive in Ndola. For example, because if at community stage, that is the third stage, if I decide to, let's say I've established something here in Mufulira, I decide to go and set up something in Kitwe, I'm going to fail because I don't know the Kitwe environment. Number one, my systems are not supporting that. Number two, the people, the skills of the people that I have, they cannot sustain that. Number three, my personal knowledge of that environment cannot sustain that. So those things will hinder you to operate at that level. So if you want to operate at the national level, it means, number one, there is some knowledge you need to have. There is knowledge which you need to have, which a person who is a contractor in Mopani doesn't have. There are people you need to employ whom a contractor has no